Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for attending the Town of Amherst Traffic Safety Board meeting. Today is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024. First order of business tonight, I just want to introduce us up here as to who we are. I am Eric Fraz, I am chairman, and we'll just go and introduce ourselves.
Greg Dion, vice chair.
Cynthia Selvin.
Max Kahn, member.
Dan Ryder.
Kevin Cantwell, member.
Jennifer McNevich, member.
Tom Brown, Lieutenant at Amherst Police.
Scott Marshall, Planning Department. Bill Prenovu, the Building Department.
Chris Schregel, Engineering Department, Traffic Safety Coordinator.
Nick Alterio, board member.
Mike Sukala, Town Board Member and Liaison to the Amherst Traffic Safety Board.
So before we go any further, just need to let you know that should an emergency alarm sound in the building, the exits are to my left, your right, out the doors, and then either enter to the front or rear of the building. First order of business this evening is to review the minutes from our June 12th, 2024 meeting. With that, I will open it up to the board. Are there any comments, changes, or notes that need to be made to the minutes? We're getting better at these. No comments. I will make a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Greg. Any further comments? Concerns, issues? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain. I was not present last month.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't present either, so I abstained.
You can. Okay, that's fine. You can still vote. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 people. Right, so we have 8 on the board tonight. That means we have motion for the minutes to approve, passes 6-0 with 2 abstentions. Okay, moving into tonight's agenda. Just so everyone is aware, a few rules of the meeting this evening. First thing, just so that everyone is aware, since most of you signed in this evening are here for number 8. Luckily for you, we do not go in the order of the agenda. We go through the order that everybody has signed in for the evening. So after we go over your item, you are more than welcome to stay for the rest of the evening if you would like, or you are more than welcome to leave as well. After we go through the agenda items, we will let you know what the next course of action is, any recommendations. Just so everyone is also aware that this board does not have lawmaking authority. So members of this board are volunteers appointed by the town board. So we serve in advisory capacity for the town of Amherst. Councilmember Zukala is here, so any action that we take that requires legal action to go before the town board, he will put a resolution forward at the town board, and then the items would go before the town board itself. Other items that are on the agenda tonight may just be things that need to be taken care of by the different departments within the town, and those actions will be passed to the liaisons from those towns who are with us this evening. As we go through the agenda this evening, we'll first provide some background information. Then we'll open up the public comment period. And then after we open up the public comment period, we will close conversation with the individuals that are here with us this evening, and it will become a conversation here amongst the board. When you do come up to the podium, we ask that you come up to the podium. We'll call you up. When you come up, state your name and your address. The meeting is being recorded. That way we have all the information for the minutes. We will give you, everybody has 3 minutes to speak. After about 2 minutes and 30 seconds, we have a bell here. You'll get a single ding. That's the indication that you got about 30 seconds left. After that, we'll give a double ding letting you know that your time is up in the 3 minutes. We won't go over any of these. Just so everybody is also aware, this board is required to follow the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, also known as the MUTCD. The MUTCD, if you ever want to reference it, it's a document that's found online. It's issued by the federal government, and it has a New York State supplement along with it. The document provides uniformity, consistency, allowing road users to know what to expect. This board will not make recommendations and cannot make recommendations that go against the MUTCD. Okay, so we have to follow that. That's what we're here to do. That is what it is. Also, there will be comments tonight regarding the speed limit, just so everyone is aware. The standard speed limit in the town of Amherst is 30 miles per hour. There is some parts in the town, in the village of Williamsville, where it is lower than that. There's ordinances in the village that allow to do that, but within the town of Amherst, 30 miles per hour is the speed limit. And the only places where the speed limit will be posted below 30 miles per hour is in zones where it's allowed for a school zone. If we were to have a recommendation to go below 30 miles per hour, there would need to be a town law passed in order for speed limits to be posted below 30 miles per hour. We will also probably discuss stop signs this evening. Just so everyone is aware, stop signs are traffic control devices, not speed control devices. Therefore, stop signs are used to control the traffic at the intersection, not to control speed on the street. If you want to find any information out about that, just feel free when you go home this evening to go onto Google and search unwarranted stop signs, and you will find all the information as to why that is the way that it is. And finally, there will be questions tonight this evening about speed bumps, speed humps, and speed tables throughout the town based on the information things that the city of Buffalo has done. The town of Amherst has not installed any speed bumps, speed humps, or speed tables within the town. Our current superintendent of highway is opposed to speed bumps. We've addressed it many times on this board. This board would be in favor of their use, but in order to do that, there'd be requirements needed from the town coordinator to take that action. And at this point, the highway superintendent, the police department, emergency response are not in favor of that action being taken. So with that, that is not something that is in our control to have those installed within the town at this time. But we will listen to your concerns about that because all of that information continues to get passed to those individuals, those liaisons, and the town board, stating that there is resident support for speed bumps, and speed tables in the town. With that, we will open up the agenda this evening. The first item on our agenda is item number 8, based on the people that are signed in. And I will turn it over to Chris to give us background as to why this is on the agenda this evening.
Thank you, members of the Traffic Safety Board. This first item, number 8, is in reference to a town park that is currently under construction. It's referred to as Royal Park. And there's a sports complex being developed. The approved plan is shown on your screen. It's an assortment of parking, a multi-use field with stadium seating, along with tennis courts, pickleball, relocated playground, and I believe that's basketball to the west, and a splash pad as well, I forgot to mention. So the project managers of this project held meetings with the public, and among their concerns were traffic. And they wanted the Traffic Safety Board to hear some of this prior to the build of this park to see if they can get out ahead of it and institute parking restrictions or wayfind signage or anything else that the public might bring up tonight. So to get your context, Royal Park is this area tucked adjacent to the 290. Queen Place runs out to South Forest. There was voiced a request to try to get any traffic going to Royal Park to utilize South Forest instead of the internal roads, hence the wayfind signage request. And then also there's fear of overflow parking. There is parking being constructed, as I previously mentioned. There may be circumstances where the events or tournaments exceed capacity of those parking spaces and may overflow onto the adjacent neighborhood. I will say that the users of the park, Damon, who will be utilizing that sports complex, will be busing their teams in. As far as I know, the opposition is doing likewise. Not within your package is something that we came up with today to give you a better understanding of where the existing parking restrictions are located in this neighborhood. Again, just to orient yourself, Royal Park is to the west here, and this is Queen Place. So there already is one on the south side of Queen Place between Royal Parkway West and East. And then there's a whole slew of other assorted parking restrictions, a lot of which I don't fully understand the origin. But up on north on Lafayette, we have a no parking. On the west side, no parking anytime except for Sundays between 8 and 12. Then that turns into a no parking on both sides. Again, no parking 8 to 12 Sunday. And then there's a no parking on the west side from 4 to 7. So just keep those in mind. If you do end up making recommendations today, it should be worth noting that these are fairly narrow streets, with Queen Place only being 20 feet wide and the surrounding streets at 23, and those are uncurbed and also lack sidewalks. With that, I'll turn it over to the board. I know we provided a recommended signage and striping plan that just to start off the conversation with, so I'll pull that up when the time comes.
Okay, with that, we will open up the public comment period. The first person we have signed in this evening wishing to speak on this item, looks like it's Beverly Beverly?
She asked me to take her spot. That's great. Can we go out of order, or do you have to do that?
Nope, we can go in any order you want. Who signed in? I'm sorry, you are
Christopher Gray?
Kristen Lynn Gray. You are all set. Just state your name so it's picked up by the microphone and your address.
Christopher Gray, 163 Royal Parkway East, Windsor, New York, 14221. Been living there about 15 years. As many people know, our street is fairly active as far as pedestrian traffic, walking around, biking, families walking, all that. And we are forced to use the street because, there's no sidewalks. And a few things. Obviously, I'm definitely concur with the idea of the wayfinding signage, so we can direct people out. I don't know if it's possible to put signs also on South Forest or, Main Street, directing people to that entrance coming in as well, to give an idea of where it is so that people aren't, trying to find the shortcut. One of the issues we're concerned about is the increased traffic coming from Main Street. As it is now, a lot of people use Main Street or use the Royal Parkway Circle as a shortcut coming from Main Street. They jump off the thruway right there. They can easily come on without having to merge into any traffic, come down Royal Parkway, and then cut down east and west. So there's quite a bit of traffic there, and then they'll either go down Queen or all the way down to Pierpont, to loop out to get to South Forest. So signage that would direct people towards, South Forest would be nice. And the parking restrictions, I think, the one-sided, I see we have it on Lafayette, which I don't really know how that's gonna affect, this park. We kind of feel, or most of our neighbors feel, that one-sided parking on Royal Parkway East and West is a necessity. As you mentioned, it's a thin road. I would say on average, once a week, we have school buses who are stopped honking their horns because, two neighbors decide to park across from each other and a school bus can't get through. So we can imagine if a fire engine or something else had to do that, we're not going to have much luck. So restricting the parking to one side would be very important, I think. Couple other issues of concern. No parking by the entrance of Royal Parkway East and West, where it's a curved section of the road. Basically because, we'll have cars parking that, and because of trees, foliage, and there's a new house under construction there, we don't know if they're going to have any type of privacy fence coming around those corners. It's kind of blind. As you're walking, you got to really keep an eye out for oncoming traffic. If they had a no parking section around there, that would, make sense and alleviate some concerns. You mentioned the speed limit and the speed bumps not being something that's possible. I guess a question I would have is, people may not be willing to, can we get instruction on how to raise a resolution with the highway supervisor or the town board or whatever to overcome that objection? Because it seems to be a little bit of a one-sided, it sounds like it's more of an opinion of one person as opposed to the desire of many.
Okay.
Thank you. Questions, anything?
Nope. All right, I'm just going to leave it up for the people that are here for item number 8 as to who wants to come up next. Since you didn't want to go in order. Anybody else want to speak on item number 8?
So, my name is Lynn Gray. I'm Chris's wife, so I'm at the end of the sign-in sheet. 163 Royal Parkway East, Williamsville. I want to just say another note that is a concern is we've had a lot of young families move into this neighborhood. And it's really sad that these cars that come down when they, like my husband mentioned, cutting through, that these cars come down and with no regard to the kids, nothing. They speed down, they speed through. My concern is that with the increase in traffic coming down, you have an increase in pedestrian, right? If they're going to be walking to the park, you're going to have an increase in pedestrians. My concern is that speed coming down on both Royal and West, and I agree with my husband. A speed bump, as he said, is kind of one-sided. As collectively, a lot of the neighbors, we were discussing that, and it's an easy solution to make them removable. We don't even want it to be a permanent thing. Just put it in for the summer months or the spring, summer, and fall, and then remove it for the plows. I can't see any reason, and I would like to know a reason why they won't put them in, because you guys are only there to do an assessment for a short amount of time. We're there 24/7 watching these cars speed through. And with the increase in pedestrians, the increase in the community with these young kids, it's dangerous. And at one point, a couple years ago, we actually would roll a ball across the road when these cars would come down to make them slow down. And you see the street signs over on Lafayette of slow down. You see our neighbors have those little plastic things with the flags telling people there's kids. So when are you guys going to do something? Because it's not about the park. This has been ongoing, and it's very frustrating that it's going to take something that's going to happen, especially with the increase in cars parked on the road, which I don't mind. That's fine. But if these kids are going to be walking, and people are walking to the park around these cars, and you got people coming down, that's an issue. So I really strongly suggest this board take into consideration the speed of that traffic, and you want people to use the park, make it easy and make it safe for them to use the park.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
My name is Tony Delagobo. I live at 72 Lafayette Boulevard. We have a problem in the neighborhood, as this lady just mentioned. There are a lot of cars in the neighborhood, and they're speeding. Once I saw a guy, well, on Lafayette, I live in the first block. People cut through from Forest to Lafayette to Main Street so they can either go west, and the light is pretty short because of the Main Street traffic. I assume you don't want to back the traffic up on Main Street, so the timing on the Lafayette side is extremely short. So what happens is a lot of cars try to make the light. They see it, maybe it's changed to green, and they're down, say, where I live in the middle of the block, and they really gun it down there and try to make the light, which they can't do. And a lot of them actually go through the red light, which is very dangerous. Once a guy came down in a truck and he passed somebody so he could get around there and get to the light and go through it, and it was red, he just went right through it. So, and there's a lot of children on the first block of Lafayette, many, and we have to wave them down and yell at them to slow down, and also we put signs up on the street to slow down. Children, drive like your children live here. There's a bunch of them on the poles. And we did that at our own expense. And there's also traffic coming from Main Street to Forest, and the same issue, they speed down there, cut down King or Queen, and go back on Forest and go south. So the problem's going to be, we have a problem right now, and I'm not sure how to address it. My suggestion is to change the speed limit to 25 miles an hour in the whole neighborhood. Lafayette, King, Queen, the Park Royal, East and West. Perhaps that would help, and it might even help if we put those radar-assisted signs that tells the speed. Although anybody who's speeding usually is going to speed. So the bottom line is, with the park coming in, I assume you've done a traffic study, and is there going to be more traffic in our neighborhood, yes or no? Somebody here must be able to answer that. Anybody? Is there going to be more traffic in our neighborhood because of the expansion of the Royal Park?
Yes.
That's a yes or a no. Anybody? Come on, somebody has to answer out here.
The assumption would be yes.
No, these guys have to answer.
The assumption would be based on,
Did you do a traffic study?
we do not have any information before
Okay,
us on
no
a traffic
traffic.
study that was done.
Okay, we can, I guess, because we're reasonable people, we can assume because there's more facilities at the park, there's going to be more people at the park, more traffic at the park, more traffic in our neighborhoods. So we're concerned for the safety of our children. So we have to do something. Speed bumps, 25 miles per hour, make, I don't know, block the road off. I don't want to have to throw balls into the street, but we do yell at them regularly. So see what you can do. Otherwise, we'll have to do something on the streets.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Going once. There's more people that are signed in that said they wanted to speak, so. You are welcome to speak. It's a public comment period. Would you like to come up? Would you like to come up and speak?
My name is Lynn Pasternak. I'm at 150 Royal Parkway West. So the question is, does anybody here know how much traffic is expected with the park or the complex when it opens? No. So this was a waste of time for everybody, all the mailings to all our homes, because I believe the town probably already has their mind made up of what signs will be there, correct? Anybody?
No.
No. So why are we here?
We are here.
That's a planning board thing.
We are a traffic safety board. We're here for the signage that was proposed here and the parking restrictions that were being proposed as part of this project.
Okay.
Nothing has been brought before us regarding plans from the town regarding the park. Nothing has been brought before this board on a traffic study that was done by the town for this park. So that is all information that is not privy to this board at this point. Those are questions that you would need to direct to the town board, to council members Zucalas, and the others that approve the park going in. That's not something that is in front of this board to consider. What is being considered by this board is the information that is before us for wayfinding signage and parking restrictions. That's the only information that's been provided to us.
Has anybody here been out to the area?
We're familiar with the area, yes.
Okay. So you have no clue of how many cars are expected?
That information has not been provided to us. That is not information that we are reviewing this evening as part of what is on the agenda.
How long do you think it would take before you do have answers of what will be happening?
That would be up to the town to present that information to us.
Okay.
Would that be the planning board?
The town board passed a resolution that they did not have to follow town's site plan and subsequent, procedure rule, except for all that
So the-
didn't hear what he said, I'm
So
sorry.
the town board took action that exempt the park because it's town property, I believe, correct? The park? They took action that exempt the town from that. So that's all, those are all issues that were done by the town board that approved this project to go. And I don't know if Councilmember Zucala has any additional information he can share on that, of how the park was approved, the project was approved.
Yes, the park has been approved. And as to the question, was there a traffic study done? I'll have to go back and look at my notes, but at this point, I don't recall if there was a traffic study done. If it was, I don't remember reading it.
Okay.
I don't believe there was a traffic study. Traffic studies are usually conducted when they expect 100 vehicles per peak hour. I don't believe that is going to be met here. We also utilize the ITE trip generation dependent on land use code. Parks are generally very difficult to predict how many people are going to go there. There's a lot of factors that go into it. If this was a Costco or some other retail, we have studies that indicate X number of vehicles are going to make trips there. But for parks, it's rather difficult to understand until it's built and until it's counted. So no, we don't have trip generation or a traffic study specific to the demand for this park.
Well, after games are done, and this is going on for a few months, going through the park in the neighborhood, is there a chance if more signage is needed at that time? Is that something that can be readdressed, or are we just,
Normally,
it is what it is?
Normally, that is the typical flow.
Okay.
Build it, study it, make an action. But we've heard from the public that they have concerns ahead of the building of this park. So the idea was to hear your concerns, get it to the Traffic Safety Board, and perhaps they can make recommendations in advance or concurrently with the development of that park. I don't know what the board's going to do here, but if they do decide, they could potentially decide to take a wait-and-see approach and then do a traffic study of real, of the real traffic flow. We can put up counters. We can count pedestrians. We can do an assortment of things after it's built. But for us to try to project what's going to go there, it's rather difficult.
Okay, well, that explains more than what has been said this evening, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Is it possible to put, I mean, at least for now, since we're kind of not going anywhere, since you're doing signs, to put on the entrance coming in off of Main, no through traffic? The sign like that, there's no through traffic, so maybe if it even takes one car out of there that cuts through, I mean, is that something that possibly can, put a sign, no through traffic?
Chairman, do you want me to touch on that?
So, hold on, board members, we're still in the public comment period, so we will address the questions that are being asked of us as we have the conversation amongst the board. So we're in the public comment period at this point, so that's part of the reason why we are not answering your questions back. Okay? So Chris, you were saying something there?
No, I'll wait till the public comment period's over. Thanks.
Is there anyone else in the audience wishing to speak on this item this evening? With that, we will close the public comment period on item number 8, Royal Parkway, and open it up to board discussion. Chris, you were going to say something, so we'll start there.
Yeah, so like the chairman opened up, he mentioned the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. This is a book that every state uses, and it tells us what signage is available for local municipalities to place. And there is no such thing as a no-through traffic sign. These are public roads, so anybody can drive there anytime they want. So we understand there's cut-through traffic. We've heard requests in the past that there's been cut-through traffic utilizing Queen Place to get between South Forest and Main. Now it's figuring out what signage is best appropriate. Wayfinding signage has been mentioned, but it's very difficult to discourage traffic from going down the street using signage.
So, as Chris said, the MUTCD, as he's referencing, are the signs that we can use. So there are signs that are out there that say no through traffic. Those would not be signs that are in public right away. Those would be signs that are most likely on private property or within a plaza or something of that nature. So that's not a sign that can be put up by the town in the public right away. When it comes to the question regarding the speed bumps that were requested in the area, I will start off by saying that the first thing that would need to be done by the town if speed bumps were to be placed in, that has already kind of been established, is we would need support from the town itself. We would need the support of the police department, the fire department, and emergency response. There is some opposition to it in those areas. The other thing that would need to be done is there would need to be guidelines put in place by the town as to what would be the parameters as to where speed bumps would be placed. The request would come from pretty much everybody in this town asking for speed bumps to be placed on their street, but there would need to be a threshold established as to what is the criteria to meet that warrant for a speed bump to be put in. If you do pay attention to anything in the media, on the news, people are complaining about the speed bumps in the city of Buffalo. Remember, if there's a speed bump placed in front of your house, every time a car goes over that speed bump, the complaints that are coming from the city of Buffalo and other places where there are speed bumps, every time a car goes over that, you get a thump thump. We have people that have come to this board complaining because of cuts that have been put into the road from construction projects. We just had it last month of people, a person in the town that actually sold their house because of a construction project in front of their house where there was a cut in the road, repaved, and every time a car would drive down the street, there was a thump thump going through their house. So in addition to that, it's already been established that if you were to put speed bumps on your street, there would need to be more than 50, potentially as much as 70% support on that street for the speed bumps. There was an initial test pilot project in the town that was approved by the town. However, when it went to the residents on that street, there were many residents like you here on that street asking for speed bumps to be put in. As soon as that went to the residents on that street, there was major opposition with, I believe, Chris, more than 50%, close to 70% of the residents on that street that responded to the survey in complete opposition for the speed bumps being placed in, so the town scrapped that project, right? So there are many people in your neighborhood. It's not something that the town is going to put in unless there's overwhelming support from the neighborhood in that on your street asking for it. There would need to be a speed study on your street to make sure that there are excessive speeds on the street to justify the installation of the speed bump. So it would be a process before that would be done. So with that, before it even probably go under consideration to consider this area for a speed bump, the development at the park is going to have to be completed. We would need to see speed counts in that area to understand what the speed limits are. Then at that point, we could take consideration to put pressure on the town board, on the highway superintendent and others to say that there are excessive speeds on the street or in the neighborhood that warrant us taking a look at installing those speed bumps. But we need to have that data and that information before we could even take that action. When it comes to the sports complex itself, we do not have a speed study. We do not have a traffic study or any information before us as to what is there. I can't even tell you from the information that's been provided to us how many seats are in that park for stadium seating, how many events are expected to be in that park. That is not information that has been shared with this board at that time, so we really cannot comment at this point or give you any information related to that because we do not have that information for us. So it would just be hearsay and assumptions as to what's going to happen on that, and that's not where we're going to go tonight. When it comes to speed limit signs, there was a request for speed limit signs. We're reducing the speed limit to below 30 miles per hour, as we had already addressed. The speed limit in the town of Amherst is 30 miles per hour. That would require legal action. There is legal precedents in New York State, legal laws that have been passed that now would allow the town of Amherst to pass laws in the town allowing for a speed limit to be under 30 miles per hour. However, the town board and the town of Amherst has not taken that action, so at this point, this board cannot consider putting a speed limit up that is lower than 30 miles per hour because there is no school in that area for a school zone that would justify us doing that.
I thought you could do it in a park area.
To my knowledge, it's only in a school zone.
Don't we have a couple of 25 mile an hour park?
No, we don't. The village does.
The village does.
I thought we did a couple over off of Vega Road.
Nope.
Can we do it?
At this point, from what has been shared with us, we are not able to go below 30 miles per hour except for in school zones where it's permitted. So there are different rules that are applicable to the town of Amherst versus the village of Williamsville.
I know that.
And that is dictated by New York state law, I believe, of one being a town, one being a village, and populations.
But I thought parks were special and schools are special.
Schools are special with the school speed limit signs. School speed zones can have a reduced speed limit. I'm not aware, Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any information that allows you to reduce a speed limit in a park area. That's correct. That's correct. I agree with
The chairman.
Also, the other thing that we will say on here is that even in areas where you do post a speed limit, there is what is called the 85th percentile speed. The 85th percentile speed is the speed that when you evaluate a street and you look at the street and you do the traffic count, if you stay through other agenda items tonight, I believe we have some of the speed counters that have been out there. That's the 85th percentile speed is the speed that 85% of the people are going to drive at or below. That is the speed that people are comfortable driving on that street. So people will drive the speed that they are comfortable driving regardless of what the posted speed limit is. So even if you put up a speed limit sign on the street posting it at 25 miles per hour, that does not mean that people are going to drive 25 miles per hour. What would actually make them drive 25 miles per hour is the street itself, making them feel that that's the appropriate speed, potential police enforcement in that area of the 25 mile per hour speed, but just posting a sign on the street saying we're taking the speed limit from 30 to 25 miles per hour, people are still going to drive the speed that they're comfortable driving on that street. When it comes to the radar feedback signs, the signs that say radar enforced, those are not permitted to be used anymore, but there are signs that are going up in the town that have the radar feedback signs. I'm not sure if, just want to clarify that. There's signs that say radar enforced on this underneath the speed limit. Those are no longer used. However, there are still some legacy signs that exist in the town where those were posted, so those remain. But the radar feedback signs that you see going up in the town where you drive by the street and it gives you the speed that you're going and tells you to slow down, those are being installed by the town in places where, again, it is justified, where we have speed studies that have been done that shows there's excessive speed in the area. And again, it would be residential approval looking for those, and we would need a resident that is in favor of having that sign in front of their house flashing every time a car goes down the street. So most people don't want that big sign that is about, what, 15 feet tall, Chris? In front of their house. By the time the pole goes in, the electrical feed into it, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So again, we would need to identify those people in the neighborhood that are in favor of having that sitting in front of their house. We're not in opposition to doing those because we do find that those are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Very, very successful in reducing the speed on the street. So if the town has money to do that, there's resident favor to do that. It is something that we would consider, but again, we would need to have that speed study done in the area to justify that there are excessive speeds before we would take that action. With that, I will open it up to the board for any other comments on the issues that were brought before us, before we go into the parking and wayfinding signs. Oh, no. So at this point, the public comment period is closed.
I know, but in your rebuttal for what you guys said.
At this point, the public comment period is closed.
Okay, just listen. You already gave us the reasons why you can't, or you gave us reasons. So I am saying to you, can we at least put a children at play sign on Royal East and Royal West? I was told a couple years ago that we were not allowed to have a children at play sign on Royal East because we weren't adjacent to the park. I mean, we gotta do something.
So
Can't do what you said, what we're requesting, so I'm just saying, is there other signage, we're worried about the kids.
So this is going to be another no. That particular sign is not allowed within the manual. All those signs along Lafayette that the private private citizens put out, those are not legal. The only signage that is potentially could be placed is playground signage, advanced playground warning signage.
I was told that because we're on Royal East, we weren't allowed to have that.
No, nobody can have it. Townwide, statewide, countrywide.
So at this point, we're going to move to the agenda item that's before us.
So one potential
Can you
solution.
can you grab a mic?
Can you just spin that one?
Thanks, Mike. So I don't know if this is an efficacious solution from a traffic engineering perspective, but can we address the pass-through traffic solution by using median gardens to block traffic between Main Street and South Forest? Is that a solution that is available to us?
So where are you looking?
For example, and purely hypothetical, putting a median garden on Queen Place just before Royal Parkway East and also on Pierpont Avenue just before Royal Parkway East, so that it is not possible to drive from Main Street to South Forest Road. Exactly. So the folks living along Royal Parkway West and East have egress to the north, and everyone not on those streets has egress to the east to South Forest Road and also to the north via Lafayette Boulevard.
So I can chime in. I'm not opposed to looking at something like that. We did a few years ago have a similar situation on Park Club where they wanted the road to be closed off. The issue that came across there was when we posed it, first there was resident opposition because they lost access to the main road. But above that, there was significant issue, I believe, with emergency vehicles because they were concerned about being able to get to areas if they lost one of the main ways to get there. Now, I'm not saying I'm opposed to it one way or another, but just to recall the history on similar things in the area.
So I mention this because I live in a very, very similarly configured neighborhood between LeBrun and Eggert Road. And it is quite nice having it blocked off so through traffic is not possible. Exactly. Yeah, right along there. See that beautiful, beautiful median garden? So it blocks off vehicle traffic, but not pedestrian traffic. Solves a lot of issues.
So you'd be looking for that where?
On Queen Place and approximately Royal Parkway East, and then you would need another along Pierpont Avenue and Royal Parkway East. That's one possible configuration. There's several.
Chris, can you just stand up in front of the map and point to the areas where you'd be?
Yeah, can you do that? Can you just stand up and show us?
Yeah, so we're looking at, let's see,
Pierpont.
where are we? So right here,
So
and then also,
are you blocking Queen or are you blocking?
yeah, you're blocking Queen and you're blocking Pierpont before they can access Royal Parkway East.
So the one thing that I see immediately is what they're requesting is to have access to the park come strictly through Queen. So that would negate their entire request with that. So that's one problem that I see with that.
Right, so the request is that they're trying to keep the traffic off of Royal Parkway and off of Lafayette and direct all of the traffic to come into the park using Queen Street. So we would want to, because the entrance to the park, if you look at the map, you would actually take Queen Place straight shot into the park.
So that's
we don't want to restrict. We don't want to restrict traffic on Queen Place.
That's one example of, but there's other ways you could use median gardens to remove the cut through possibility. You'd have to place more of them. You could place them along Royal Parkway West and East.
So I'll just ask the residents that are here in the audience real quick. Norm, we're trying to, whatever. Residents that are here, would you be in favor or opposed if there was that type of work done on Royal Parkway East, Royal Parkway West, say in the vicinity of Kings Place, or the four Kings probably have to be in that vicinity. Therefore, if you're in that block from King Place to Royal Parkway, you would lose your access to Main Street. If you were on the other, if you were north of King Place, you wouldn't have access to go to Queen Place. You would always have to go to Main Street.
second time.
So here's like a half closure schematic.
So Chris, we already said that the street there is already pretty narrow, correct? It's 24 feet instead of the standard 23? Instead of the standard 28 in the town?
Our standard's 28.
Right, standard's 28 and this is 23,
Correct. So it's already narrow.
so we're already narrow. And then 20 on Queen. So putting anything like that into the street, you're very limited. You'd almost have to cut off one way. Because you wouldn't have enough room for two-way traffic based on the street width.
One resident said there's a problem when two cars are parking like across from each other and one's trying to get by. What happens if we go forward with one side parking?
We haven't even gotten there yet.
Can we?
Would love to.
All right, well, what happens if we restrict the parking on these questionable streets to one side?
So
It is
that's,
like that at
that's,
some
that's where I'm trying.
places
That's
now.
where I'm trying to go right now. Is I'm trying to go to what's before us on the agenda, which is the map that is there and the wayfinding signs and the parking restrictions. So what is being proposed right now is the no parking on the east side of Royal Parkway as indicated by the red line, and no parking on the west side of Royal Parkway East as indicated by the red line on the map.
Let's
So
let's
let me
stop
just-
there. Does anybody think that that's a bad idea? Any of you residents who live there?
So as we had the public comment period open, that was not discussed.
So the way this was brought up is, not brought up, decided was the restrictions were put on the hydrant side of the street, hence the west side on Royal Parkway East and the east side on Royal Parkway West. We don't know how far the parking may expand beyond the park. Okay, this is somebody's guess. It's just a starting point. Like I said earlier, normally you wait and see how far they go in. I mean, you're still allowed to park on one side. That is a lot of spaces, at least on one side, to accommodate the park. I didn't count them up, but, you know,
What about things like fire hydrants that automatically exclude that?
Those are on the side that we're putting the parking restriction in place.
yep.
That's already been thought about.
And then Queen being so narrow, it was suggested that potentially both side parking restriction. Now keep in mind, anytime you, and you guys know this, anytime you restrict parking, it is a wider area for vehicles, for drivers to go through, and they usually increase their speed as a result.
We have the same problem at the one part, the Garnett Park. Off of,
Yep.
yeah, same problem down there.
So just so the residents are aware, one of the things that comes up is a way to reduce speeds on a street is parking cars on the street because people need to navigate the parked cars when they drive down the street. You can disagree with us on that, but that's proven through studies that parked cars on a street slow down traffic. So when you put in parking restrictions, that opens up the street, which allows cars to travel faster. But in this particular instance, based on the width of your street, if you maintain parking on two sides of the street, as was already brought forward by residents speaking this evening, you can't drive down the street. So therefore, based on where the park is, that's why this is the recommendation for that area, to restrict parking on one side of the street. That parking restriction would be in place 24/7, correct, is what's being proposed
Yes.
right now? Yes.
Correct.
So
Right.
with that, I will make a motion before this board to place the no parking restrictions as indicated on the map on Royal Parkway West, Royal Parkway East, and no parking on both sides of the road on Queen Place. Is there a second?
Chairman, may I also, one of the residents made a comment about restricting parking on the curved portion of the roadway.
Up at Main Street, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't be opposed to extending it all the way up to that curb on both of those sides.
Okay, so right now, the resolution, the motion being proposed is the parking restriction as indicated on the map. That's the motion by me. Is there a second for that?
Yes.
Yep, so we have a second from Cynthia. With that, we will open it up to further discussion before we vote on the resolution for any change, on the motion before any changes, for any changes. So with that, at this point, Jennifer, would like to add a parking restriction on the curve of Royal Parkway East and Royal Parkway West.
Yes, and I'm on the fence about extending it the entire way or just segmenting it so that it's as it stands now, plus the curve. And I would suggest that we go the more conservative route, do what's shown there and the curves, and then after this gets built out, do a second study to see if we need to further restrict parking.
I'm gonna actually say, if we restrict the parking on the curve, we're pretty much gonna restrict the parking, what is that, Royal Parkway that comes straight in before it splits?
Right here.
Right there. So you'd be restricting for the curve, you'd probably be restricting on the inside curve from there around both sides and 50 feet down. Once you put that, you're gonna have the stretch in there where if that's the only area where people are permitted to park, it's probably gonna be the spot where everybody goes. So we might as well just restrict all the way around.
It's hard to tell with the scale of the drawing how many
Right.
feet it actually is.
Chris, can you pull up the Google map image you were looking? So what we're saying here is if you look at the Google map image, when you put the no parking restriction in, can you go to satellite, Chris, so we can see the houses too, what we're looking at? So if we were to put the parking restriction in place on the curve, you would most likely restrict it from that point where Chris's mouse is at the intersection, because it's technically already restricted at the intersection. You would go around the curve, and then you would go 50 feet from the curve. So we'd probably be at that first driveway on the inside edge. And we do the same thing on the other side coming around. So once you do that, you would then only be able to park from that driveway, Chris, down to King's Place. How many houses are we looking at there? Or can you measure that distance?
$630.
It's pretty substantial.
Right, but that's the only area where you can park, that's gonna force everybody to park in that area on both sides of the street.
I do want to throw in on for this conversation that just based on manually counting the parking spots on the site plan, there are 103 spots on the site plan. And in addition, like Chris mentioned, Damon has agreed to bus all of their athletes to the location. And the opposing teams have also been asked to bus their teams to the location using the designated route. So I just want to throw that in there for this portion of the conversation.
And where does the bus park?
Great question.
So I'm just gonna ask Jennifer on this. Jennifer, as you propose the parking restriction to add into the motion, where would you like it?
At least on the curves. If the balance of the board wishes to extend it the entire way, I'm good with that. I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other,
Except for the curve.
except for the curve.
We're saying inside edge of the curve, correct? Yep,
Both sides usually.
both sides inside.
You might as well carry it through the intersection.
Didn't
Correct.
didn't the 50 feet like end right at a driveway? Why don't we just extend it beyond the driveway? Because it's gonna,
Because then the sign's in front of their front yard. It's usually better to put it on the close near side.
Is everyone in favor of what is drawn on there to modify the motion?
you know, we can always add no parking later, but if we do it now and it proves to be bad, you can't take it away.
Extremely hard to take away. Okay, so the motion before us is for no parking as indicated on there by the red lines of single-sided and the blue line of both sides of the street. All members in favor? Aye. Motion, anyone opposed? So motion carried 8-0 for the parking restrictions as indicated. That will now go before the Councilmember Zucala to write a resolution. That'll go before the town board. There'll be a public hearing, public comment before the town board. Councilmember Zucala and Chris will get back to everybody as to when those hearing dates are set and when that'll be taken under consideration by the town board. My assumption is,
Just to explain this to the public again, everyone within 600 feet of these no parkings will be notified of the public hearing. You will be given the opportunity to speak to the town board. This is not a done deal. This is a recommendation.
Okay, so the other thing before us is the wayfinding signs as indicated on the map.
So let me just explain that a little bit. We did our best, and this is really modeled off of places like Northtown Center, that same color sign. I think the first speaker spoke about, can we put them on Main Street? Can we put them on South Forest? That is what's being shown. Keep in mind, those are the jurisdiction of New York State DOT. So this is just a proposal. If this were to move forward, we would be required to ask for permission and a permit. But essentially, it's getting you from eastbound, from Snyder, having the visitors drive past Royal Parkway and then be directed to turn right on South Forest, not turn on Kings Place because it says go forward, and then turn right at Queen and then into the park. Leaving the park, we have a private sign that says use South Forest Road to exit. We can put whatever words you want on that because that's not going to fall within the right of way. We would put that on private property, or it would be public. It'd be park property, but not in the right of way. So feel free to change that, and then out they go. These are called wayfinding signage. It's supposed to get you to the destination. There's no signage that gets you out of a destination per the book. So this is our solution to that, having something internal in our park. We're open for comments and changes.
I like this signage. The only addition I would make is on the use South Forest Road to exit sign. I would like, I personally would prefer an arrow pointing straight just to get them, just in case they don't know what South Forest Road is. I'm speaking into it. Having an arrow that points towards South Forest.
Okay, I got you. A straight arrow coming out of the park? Got it.
Similar to like the Royal Park one above it.
Understood.
I'd be in favor of that as well. Any other comments regarding the wayfinding sign?
Yeah, I mean, if we're totally ad-libbing it here,
Make sure you're close enough so
okay. If we're ad-libbing it here,
not.
I'm not close enough. Okay. If we're gonna do an arrow, why not make, 1, 2, 3 cross arrows to let you know the fourth one is South Forest? So it's not just straight, okay, a straight, where do I turn? Oh, there it is right there. You can 1 street, 2 streets, 3 streets, the fourth street is Forest. Just like a little hash bar on the arrow.
Because Chris had said that those signs are not approved per MUTCD. That's why that one sign is on private property.
Well, I mean, we're ad-libbing this.
That one's on private property, so you can ad-lib. The other signs you can't do because they are not approved by the MUTCD. There are no signs that exit the venue.
So we're ad-libbing. The one sign.
The one sign, yes.
We're gonna put an arrow on it.
Yes.
Why not put more than an arrow? That's a little clearer. That is the fourth street, the Forest is the fourth street you turn on.
I guess I'm not understanding what you're trying to say then.
Okay, imagine that sign that we're ad-libbing anyway, that we can do whatever we want with.
Use the mic.
It's an arrow, okay? It says use South Forest Road with pointing in that direction. Why not put 1 hash bar for Royal Parkway West, 1 little hash bar for East, 1 little hash bar for what's next, Lafayette, and then, there you turn on the fourth one. Because, when you're driving
So you
out.
want an act like a
The sign will be too big.
A little mini map that says 1, 2, you pass the fourth one, you make your move.
I think that sign would be
No.
too big.
Well, we're ad-libbing it anyway. I mean, if I'm a stranger in town going to this park, trying to find my way out, I'm going to want to know which
So
street to
if we
turn.
put the sign in the park that says exit to South Forest, I would hope that as people cross the streets, they would read the street signs that would let them know the streets to know when they get to South Forest. The only other thing that I would suggest here, which don't even think we could do, is could you make at that intersection, could you put up signs that say straight only that forbid and restrict right-hand turns and left-hand turns coming out of the park?
Nope.
Okay. Answers that question. So, any other comments regarding the wayfinding signs as indicated other than the addition of an arrow for the sign on private property that says use South Forest Road to exit?
I like these signs, okay? But I think it's gonna be critical, I think sign placement's gonna be critical. There's a bunch of trees in that neighborhood, okay? And we don't need to be putting these signs up and have them hidden behind trees. Somebody needs to go out and stake these locations. An engineer.
Yeah. It's a valid point, Member Ryder, but we would depend on our sign crew who places signs every day to put it in the best location and have the best visibility. Yeah, engineering typically doesn't get involved in telling them how to do their job. That's what they do day in and day out.
Well, if you get on Facebook, you can see some of the examples that were done recently.
Okay, so with
We
that,
don't need to repeat that. I have one other comment. The chairman mentioned speed bumps and speed
hold
humps.
on, Dan, don't go there. So hold on. So we need a motion from somebody to install the wayfinding signs as indicated.
So moved.
So motion by Greg. Do we have a second?
A second.
Second by Dan. Any further conversation? None being heard. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 0. Motion carried for the wayfinding signs as indicated with the addition of the South Forest Road to exit with an arrow sign. Motion carried 8-0. All right, Dan, now you can go.
Okay, I'd like to talk about speed humps. They're not big bumps, they're shorter bumps, okay? This board has been kicking that subject around for 2 or 3 years. And, we heard about the police department, the fire department, and the town board, and the highway department. Nobody wants them, but we get some residents that do, some don't. I think the best thing you can do is to get your group, go to a town board meeting, and get up there and talk to the board. They listen, and tell them you want them or you don't want them. And maybe this will be the first demonstration project in Amherst for a speed hump other than the one that's out in the parking lot that I can see here. First one on a public street maybe in your neighborhood. But it's up to you. We can't do it.
Chairman, may I make a comment?
You are more than welcome to.
We heard a lot from the residents tonight about speeding concerns, issues that have been going on for a long time. The letter that was sent to the residents specifically talks about wayfinding signage and parking restrictions. So that's the information that we have in our packet to review. So if you come here talking about speeding concerns, if we knew that that was something that was a concern and it was brought to us, then we could have background information. We could have done speed studies to see how fast things are. When the chairman talked about the 85th percentile speed, we don't have that information in front of us. So I would suggest that you reach out to Chris through the channels with the Traffic and Safety Board. If you have other concerns that are peripheral or separate from this development, bring those to us, and then we can have all the information in front of us, and we can really engage with you. It's difficult for us to weigh in on things if we just don't have the information.
Thank you, Jennifer. Any other comments on item 8 before we close it? All right, with that, item number 8 on the agenda is closed. The next person we have signed in this evening is for item number 6, which would be Gettsville Road and Elmhurst Road intersection, request for an all-way stop sign. Is Kathy in the, Kathy Q? Are you here for any agenda? Grace Point? Grass Point. Oh, so at the request of the residents, just so you're aware for Grass Point, which is item number 1 on the agenda this evening, at the request of the resident that submitted that item, they asked for it to be held for the September meeting. So that item, if you want to speak about that, we're going to go to item number 6, and then we'll go to that item if you have something to say on it, since it is on the agenda. Okay, sorry about that.
So, no, we just heard of their request to remove it was after the package was sent out, after it was published on the town board, or on the website. You know, they couldn't get the people that they wanted there, so they respectfully asked that it be held.
I'm sorry.
Item 6, sir, if you can, sir, if you could just
I
hold
didn't
up.
notice that you didn't have anything on here for your, I should have asked you before we started the meeting, so sorry about that.
Okay, so, sir, before you get started, I'd like to give an introduction, okay?
So with that, Chris is going to give an introduction of item number 6 and what we're here to discuss this evening.
So a resident reached out to the town via email and asked that there be consideration for additional traffic control at Elmhurst and Gettsville. You may be familiar with this intersection, as this board has been nearby with recommendations on Gettsville related to other stop signs. In addition, this board asked that the Damon University install a mid-block crosswalk in close proximity to this intersection. There had been a request for the ability for pedestrians to cross nearby, and that was established. In your package is also a recommendation from the president of Damon, saying that they have no objection to the installation of a stop sign. And let me just go through a couple figures here. This is a map of the existing traffic control in this section of Gettsville. Elmhurst is just north of Main Street, and it is currently stopped just on the west leg, or the eastbound approach. Just to remind the board, you had made recommendations to relocate those stop signs to make them be an all-way stop at Greenbrier and Gettsville, likewise Woodbury and Gettsville as well. We had done some stop sign compliance in that area. There's not the greatest compliance for stopping it fully at the stop signs that are present there now. And this, the board asks that the engineering department put together a plan for enhancing the mid-block crosswalk that is already present by Damon. This is a new sign plan that, if this board agrees, can be forwarded to the highway superintendent for implementation. A lot of this signage and striping is not out there now. Admittedly, it could be better and brought up to standards. And with that, I'll pass it back over to the board.
With that, we'll open up item number 6 on the agenda for public comment, and you're there. Just state your name and address for the minutes, please.
Before I speak, I'm all new to this. I brought some material here for the board to look at. Can I give you something, or what? It's kind of vital to understanding the problem.
You can bring it up. We'll try to project it. If not, we'll just pass it through.
Pictures are marked on the back what they represent. And I have 3. These are all the same.
Okay. Just tell me how to go through it when you're talking, okay?
Okay, my name is Robert Lamonti, and I live at 65 Elmhurst Road. And the purpose of me coming today is the concern of the neighborhood. I actually have a petition with 14 names. They all agree that this intersection, Elmhurst coming out to Gettsville, is extremely dangerous. Why is that? Because it's a blind curve to the right. So people coming north on Gettsville cannot see what's going on when Elmhurst comes out, up until the last moment. And I made a little diagram, and we measured it. It's 142 feet till someone sees you coming when you're coming down Gettsville. And if you make calculations, and I tried to show my calculations, if you're going 30 miles an hour, you have 3.2 seconds. If you're sitting at the Elmhurst intersection, you have 3 seconds to decide if it's safe to go out, because people are coming from the right very fast. If they're going 38 miles, you have 2.6, and if they're going 40, and a lot of them do, it's 2.4 seconds. That's not a lot of time, and that's on a good day. If it's dark at night, if there's bad weather, if it's raining, if somebody's coming out of Damon, then it makes, a much more difficult decision to get out. And I went through the manual, and they made several statements that the angle of approach is important. This is blind. The speeds of approach. The 80th percentile, I believe, was 38 miles an hour. The sight distance, I put that down. It's 142 feet. Pedestrian traffic. You have a crosswalk not far from here that if you're on the Elmhurst side, they can't see you if you start to go across the crosswalk. And then on the negative side, where it says not to use the intersection, it says if sight distance is adequate. Well, it's not. And it says vehicle entering less than 1,000 units per day. No, it was 4,000. That was the last reasonable study that was done in 2015. So there's a ton of traffic. So basically, what you have to do to get out of Elmhurst is you have to inch up almost into the street, look to the right, because it's blind, and you have to literally look to the right as you make a turn. Now, if somebody's coming the other way, you're not going to see them. God forbid we haven't had a major accident here, but it's going to happen. And we have a lot of elderly people. We have people with special needs on that street who find it very difficult to get out. And we would really appreciate the traffic board looking into this and addressing it if at all possible, because this is an impossible situation. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions for me?
Not at this point.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here wishing to speak on item number 6?
I'm sorry, this thing. Whose is this? Is this yours? Oh, no.
Oh, that's fine.
Oh.
All right.
Joe Stalteri, I live at 23 Reinwald here in the village. I grew up on Brantwood, right near Main Street. Our family owned the house for 53 years until recently when my mom passed. So I know every inch of Gettsville Road. And years ago, there was only one stop sign at the end of Gettsville down by campus. And probably 35 years ago, some kid was riding his motorcycle down the street late at night and missed a turn there at the end and ended up on somebody's front porch. And so that's when they, started to try to control the speed. And they, all of a sudden, then those stop signs got put up at the 4-way stop signs there. And when that happened, the Amherst police were not happy about it. I mentioned this at the last meeting that I came to, that there was on the front page of the Amherst Bee that those stop signs were illegal because those intersections are not equal. I mean, if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. If somebody rolls to a stop sign and then the car that's making a left-hand turn, who's at fault? The car that turns left or the car that rolled through the stop sign? So something has to be done about those stop signs. And they were really put up to control speed. And the only thing that should really control speed is enforcement. And I think that's really what the issue is, even when we're talking about Royal Parkway here. My late aunt, she was in the convent at Rosary Hill and then Damon. She didn't start driving until she was 50-some years old. And she passes her road test, goes out the first few times, and she rolls to the stop sign down on Gettsville where campus was, and she got a ticket for rolling through the stop sign. Then they take the stop sign away. So that was the other thing that was confusing. They put those stop signs further up, but they took the stop sign away on campus. So that doesn't make sense. Why is there not a stop sign down on campus to slow the cars down there? So there was never a stop sign on Elmhurst. I don't remember ever there being an accident there. It's just a nice tree-lined road, and speed is the issue, you know. And the police every year, like now, coming up the end of August, beginning of September, when school starts, there'll be a speed trap there. They'll be parked over on the side there on Meadow Stream and pulling all the kids rolling through the stop sign. But, you know, so it's really a speed issue, I think. I don't know. I didn't understand what you meant about the stop signs. Are you going to change those stop signs there on Meadow Stream and Colony Court? And I couldn't see.
Sir, I think you were at the town board meeting, were you not, during the public hearing?
I was.
Yeah, you spoke similar to what you spoke tonight, and you saw that action where it was ultimately not town board approved and it was kicked back to this board.
Okay.
Right now, the board at its last meeting recommended that those stop signs be removed, just
Right.
like you're indicating.
Right.
That's the last recommendation we have on it.
Yeah. You know, another thing too, it's worth mentioning, they did all the improvements here on Main Street with the bump outs, and that was supposed to reduce traffic or reduce the speed of the cars. It really hasn't. I mean, cars speed down here, officer, you know what I'm talking about. So it really goes back to enforcement. It just does. You know, you can put all the signs up you want, and people are going to blow through those signs and you know, whatever. So I just thought I'd make those comments. Thank you.
Can you're not signed in. If you could just sign in for us, we'd appreciate it. With that, is there anybody else wishing to speak on this item this evening? None being heard or seen, we'll close the public comment section and open up to the board for discussion.
Exactly what is the ask here?
So the ask, as I'm hearing from the resident, is for an all-way stop sign on Gettsville and Elmhurst, which would align with the, well, it's Elmhurst Road that goes into the Damon for the parking lots.
Can I clarify that? I think there's only necessity for one stop sign on the west side, Damon entrances. Because that's the only, to the right, you see, it's the blind curve. To the other side, it's not a blind curve. So you don't need people.
So you wouldn't be able to put in a three-legged stop sign at a four-way intersection. So if you would have to put the stop sign in both directions on Gettsville. You couldn't just put it on one side. Unless I'm wrong there, but
No, that's why we're in the mess we are, and
Yes.
the intersections to the north.
if you put the stop sign in the one direction, people would then assume that the cars coming in both ways are going to stop. And we already know on Gettsville Road, they don't stop for the existing stop signs that are there. Comments from anybody on the board?
Chris, could you put the crosswalk plan aerial that you had before?
Sure.
Now, has this been done?
No.
Because at one time, we were gonna put a crosswalk right at the intersection, were we not?
No, maybe I should clarify. The crosswalk itself has been done by Damon.
That one, that double wide one?
This one right here.
Okay.
And some of the signage is deployed, but not the shark tooth yield signs, not the yield to pedestrian signage. It's missing some components that you typically see at a mid-block crosswalk.
So,
But no, there was intention not to put it at the intersection. And part of it was site distance. The resident just mentioned that it fails site distance to the south. We did our own site distance calculations. They differ from what the resident said. Keep in mind, this is, you take this measurement where the pedestrians are crossing, and that's a little bit south from where he was taking it. But, you know, it measured 262 feet. For 30, it's 200, and for 35, it's 250. So it meets both of those.
Well, there was an issue on this, at this intersection a year or two ago, and I wasn't familiar with this, so I drove down there, and when you're coming down that hill from Main Street, you can't see that driveway at Damon. The way the grade is, you don't even know it's there until you're right on top of it, correct, sir? Yes. So, you know, there's a site distance problem there now. Maybe it doesn't meet the numbers, but you can't see objects that you should be able to see.
Well, it's not a clearly marked driveway at all.
That's the Damon thing coming in right by the end tree there, isn't it?
It's right where my cursor is.
Yeah. You can't, that doesn't look like a driveway to me. It needs to have a sign or something.
Okay.
Hidden drive or something like that.
Stop sign. Because they're flying down that hill anyway.
So could there be a sign placed in that area, Chris, for a T intersection? Like you see when you drive down a country road, when you're approaching an intersection,
Oh,
there's a there's a intersection advisory sign.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Scott's correct. It would be a driveway, hidden driveway sign. I'd have to research that to know if that.
I thought we were going to do something there a couple of years ago.
They would put a crosswalk further down the street.
And honestly, Damon should be signing it as a driveway, make it a lot more clear.
So, can we, before we tackle this, can we go back to the drawing that you had that's missing signage and improvements? Is anyone here opposed to highway taking action to place the signs as indicated as should be there? Paintings, everything else, we're all in favor?
Well, yeah, you got the crosswalk, so you got a sign.
Yeah.
Aye. So with that, we are all in favor, 8-0, that we will pass that along to Highway, Chris, for them to, we don't need town board action to place the signs, that's on Highway, correct?
Correct.
So we'll refer that to Highway to take the corrective action to put the proper signage and road paintings for the crosswalk that's in place.
Okay.
When it comes to the hidden driveway sign, I think, but let's, the residents' request first. We're gonna struggle with this one. We already know that we have issues on Gettsville Road when it comes to stop sign compliance to begin with. The next thing that we would need to do is we would need to do a warrant analysis for that stop sign. The parking lot being there, that's a driveway? I don't even know how that works into the count, Chris.
It counts.
So that would work, and that would be part of it?
Yeah, we wouldn't want to study it until Gettsville's in session. Damon is in session.
So we can tell just from Elmhurst being that's a cul-de-sac, correct? Not a dead end?
Yeah, it's.
From that street being a cul-de-sac with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That street by itself is not going to meet the warrants for stop sign placement, so it's really going to become dependent upon the Damon parking lot, getting that counted at the right time for the traffic, certain number of counts at a time, because we would need those warrants on the intersection to justify the installation of an all-way stop sign. So I would make a motion that we refer this to Highway as well, for the first, probably after Labor Day, Chris, so we'd probably have to hold this then till the October meeting. So sometime during the month of September to get counts at that intersection of the driveway, to see if any warrants are met. So before we can take any action on the installation of a stop sign, that's what we would need. We're required by the rules that are there. There are some other things that will be taken into account with that, the site vision, everything that you mentioned in there when they do that warrant analysis for the stop signs, that'll all be taken into consideration. So before we can do anything regarding that stop sign, a four-way intersection, that's the information that we need to get, okay? So we'll refer that to highway for those counts. Any further discussion on the hidden driveway sign, or would we want to hold that until we first determine if there's warrants for an all-way stop sign?
I'd like to hold personally.
Okay, so with that, we will hold the item. So Chris will be back in contact with you to let you know when it'll show on the agenda for September because it's a held item. But it probably we're asking for it to be done in September, so it'll be held to the October meeting. Okay? Yep.
You gave us 3 of them.
I got one already.
Okay, with that, the next item, it says item C for Jane, which is under old business. Chateau Terrace. Is Jane, did you want to go there? Did you want to speak? You're just here to observe? Right, what's next person signed in is for that item. So item C on under old business, Chris?
What is that?
Chateau Terrace, sorry.
Old business.
We don't have a sheet.
So guys, there's not a lot to share at this point. We have an individual who keeps appearing before the town board asking for a traffic study in the Chateau area. We've been reviewing Chateau dozens of times for the past 15 years. I'd like to know, I wasn't able to get in touch with him prior to this meeting, but I'd like to know if we are going to study it, what does this board want us to look at as part of that area before we dive into it at the September meeting? It's really just a discussion at this point. We don't have anything to share at this point.
Can we do anything on Chateau Terrace at this point for traffic study, considering it's a active construction zone?
What would be the point?
Yes, the construction does not prevent you from taking action.
Right, but we have a construction project there that once it's finished is going to vastly alter the street. So anything that we would conclude from that traffic study, or anything that we do study, when that full build-out is complete, it's going to need to be studied again.
I would think that would be the time to do it, when the construction is done. I mean, there's minimal I'm not going to say minimal, but
yeah.
if no one's using that area, it's going to be skewed results.
No, I think the problem, I attended a couple of town board meetings and I watched some on video. There's summer camps and athletic training and everything else going on at Park School. And that generates a lot of traffic, and I think that's the people that the neighbors are saying are speeding.
Right, and I would say at this point in time, we've discussed Park School on this board numerous times, and the recommendation of this board has been to close the driveway to Park School from Chateau Terrace.
Okay, that's a good idea.
And has there been any response to that suggestion?
That has gone to highway, I believe, and to planning to identify why that driveway and access is there, and if not warranted, to close it. And that has not happened.
Has Damon responded to that request?
It's Park School.
I mean, I'm sorry, has Park School responded to that request?
Yeah, Park School wants it left open. They were here during those conversations.
They were what?
They were here during those conversations, and they'd like it to remain open.
So the only way you're going to eliminate the problems with Park School is to close the access to Park School from Chateau Terrace. If that driveway continues to remain there, you're going to continue to have everybody using it as what it is. However, I believe if my memory is correct from everything that we have found is that that was there's nothing that indicates that that driveway is, that access point is supposed to be there. It is? Okay. That was.
He's saying that the access point is on the original site plan.
Okay, so I guess that answers that question.
So do you want us just to, do you want any information gathered? Do you want to have counts coming out of that driveway? Did we miss our window since camp is over?
If the
What would help you?
If the driveway, I mean, that would be what we want to study, is we want to know that driveway, and Scott from planning is telling us that that driveway is on the original site plan, so that driveway is there. I don't know what counting it does. It's not going to get shut down.
It seems to be that I've seen a letter from Park to the town saying that that driveway would only be used for a food delivery truck. And that letter was like 20 or 30 years ago. Now, I'll try to get a copy of that letter and bring it in.
But even if the letter is there, if the driveway is on the site plan, it's an approved driveway. So the only thing you could do is you could go before highway and ask the highway and superintendent to revoke the curb cut.
Right.
And Scott, there were no conditions of approval on that site plan that related to that sort of stuff? No. Okay.
Probably the town board can close it. Right, well, so there's possibilities.
So before us, the question is, what do we want them to study if they do a study? We want them to study what?
I think regardless of that entire discourse, I mean, we need to wait until the construction's done. Like anything we do.
Right, there was a full engineering traffic study that was done for the construction of the building.
I know.
I'm not sure what an additional. I'm not sure what an additional study at this point would do until the project itself is completed.
I'll just bring up all the history. And I'll invite the resident who keeps going to the town board meetings, and we'll see what he has to say.
So if there's anything to be studied, it would just be probably, again, traffic counts, which we already have, I believe, as part of the construction project, and there was a full study that was done for that project, correct, Chris?
Yes.
Traffic impact?
Yes.
So we have the counts, we have all the information from that. If we were to get speed counts and traffic counts on Chateau Terrace by Born-Hava School in that vicinity, because I believe that's the area where they're probably concerned about, and if we were able to get counts of some capacity of the number of vehicles entering and exit the driveway to park, to find out what the true number of cut-through traffic is versus residential traffic on the streets.
Mr. Chairman, I think the problem with speeding is down further. It's near the entrance and exit of Park School.
So we can count there as well. I mean, we have all the information already from the full study that was done for the construction project.
Yeah, we've asked Highway, we do have old counts there, Dan, and we've asked Highway to update those counts, so we'll have a
Good.
couple of different, I don't think I asked for one near Born-Hava. We may do that as well.
I know we just always have the issues with cars parking buses looping that shouldn't be where they are. So if we can get true counts of what's going on there that are different than anything that's in the initial traffic study, we can look at it. Any other comments on item C? None being heard for item C, we'll close item C. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which we have a resident here for item number 5, Hilton Boulevard, speeding concerns. Chris will give us background information and then open it up to you.
Okay.
All right. So,
Hilton?
provided a email from Meg, who appears before you today. Says that Hilton Boulevard is a convenient way to avoid Sheridan and Walmart. It's a residential street. You see it on your screen. It's a connection between Sweet Home and North Bailey. People are driving too fast and reckless, according to Meg, and think somebody may get injured eventually. Looking for alleviation of speeds on that roadway. So, at the time your package was delivered, we did actually have speed counts included.
I was wondering if that was you guys. I saw on my neighbor's tree.
Okay, sometimes that was us. Sometimes I give this to you ahead of time. Meg, I'm sorry I didn't do that. So we'll go over it right now to show you the results, okay? So what we do is we put out the counters for an entire week, and the speed that we're going to report is for the over the entire week, but then we take the highest volume day to show you graphically on where the volume stands. We look at both eastbound and westbound approaches, or directions, I should say. So let me pop those up on the screen. So this is a graph. Speed ranges are on the bottom. Total number of vehicles are on the left side. And what we can tell here, and this is going in the eastbound direction, counter was placed at 75. We we normally try to aim for mid-block. We do have a couple new members here, so want to inform them as well on what we do. So in this direction, you see the highest range is 31 to 35 miles per hour, but you heard the chairman talk about the 85th percentile. In this particular direction, it's 35 miles per hour. So people are comfortable driving 35 miles per hour, which is like 5 higher than the posted speed limit. And in the westbound direction, it's 34 miles per hour. Volume has more going in the eastbound versus westbound. This is the total volume. This shows us, when the highest peaks are. So at the 4 o'clock hour, that is 112 vehicles during that 1 hour. And then obviously tapers off as you get past the AM and PM peaks. We also like to look at speeds over 40 miles per hour. This gives the police department an idea of when they should deploy speed enforcement if they choose to do so. It looks like at 3 o'clock, there's an average of 3.5 vehicles during that hour exceeding 40 miles per hour. 6 a.m., you normally don't see that. It's a little bit early, but that's the peak in the morning. With that, let me see if I have any other information. We only had one crash in the last 5 years on Hilton, and that was related to a driveway. Somebody coming out of the driveway or pulling into a driveway. In terms of traffic control devices, there are no stop signs along Hilton Drive. There are on the bottom leg of the T intersections. That is considered to be appropriately signed. And that concludes my little spiel. Chairman?
Okay, with that, we'll open up public comment, and Megan, it's all yours.
Hey, my name is Megan Chesla, and thank you for doing that. I was looking at that data, and I'm actually quite comfortable with that. And as I was sitting and listening to number 8, it occurred to me that I have a parenting problem in my neighborhood rather than a traffic problem. So I withdraw my complaint. Yeah, it's more about parenting. We've got like 3 packs of kids that are totally unsupervised in their wild, and it occurs to me that that's not my responsibility. So I withdraw my complaint, and thank you for looking. And those numbers really reassure me.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, come back. Please. Come back.
Any other residents wishing to speak on this item? Okay, so no other public comments. I'll open it up to the board for discussion. Chris, I just have one comment on this one. For my own, probably, knowledge. Sheridan Drive, parts of it were just repaved. I don't think it was paved up that, was not paved up that far. But wasn't there some kind of work that was going to be done as part of Sheridan Drive on signal coordination? Because we're in front of the Walmart and there's the signals that are there. So wondering if some of that cut through traffic is happening because people are frustrated with getting stopped at signals that are not timed well together. Then make those turns and cut behind the Walmart to get to Bailey, since it is the eastbound traffic that's higher.
Are you sure that's not part of the portion that was paved?
I don't know where it was.
Yeah. So those signals are screwed up. I can tell you.
Yes.
I can tell you firsthand. Jennifer, I don't know if you've noticed as well. But I would say give DOT a little more time to deploy their timing signal plans. And let's see how that works.
Okay. So just so you know, what I want to point out there is that Sheridan Drive, we know there's issues on Sheridan Drive. There's a current paving project that's going on. It may have thrown off our counts a little bit, but we know that the timing of the intersections is the signal timing between those is horrible and off. Right. So part of that paving project that New York State DOT is doing in there, they should be doing a signal coordination as well. So we will continue to watch that. If you see any changes or if you see anything different, if you want to just reach out to Chris and let him know, because we can just send a letter back to New York State DOT, let them know that we have a high traffic count in that area that we think is from people avoiding the signals to cut over to Bailey, and ask them to review the signal timing on the street. Okay?
Chairman?
Yep.
In addition, I live close to that area, and I have used that as a cut-through to avoid the unwarranted traffic signal at Emerson and Sweet Home. And I know that we have conversation going with the county on that one. But based on the last discussion, that was unwarranted, and our suggestion was to put in a roundabout. And I don't know if there would be an option to not have the signal there, and in lieu of the roundabout, because that roundabout would be a quite expensive endeavor.
So what you're saying is people are also using Hilton as a cut through to avoid the signal at Sheridan, at Sweet Home and Emerson.
I know I am.
Okay.
Not all the time, just on occasion.
So your ask, if I'm getting this correctly, your ask then is to use this street with cut-through traffic and what we're seeing on this street as further justification as to why the signal at, the effect that the unwarranted signal at Emerson and Sweet Home is causing on other streets. Potentially.
I mean, if you look at the number of vehicles on that street versus the number of people that live on that street, it's
high.
it's
way too high.
Yes, so it is being used, and I shouldn't say cut through. I mean, it's just an auxiliary road. It's a public road. People can use it.
So Megan, just so you know, we have talked about the intersection at Sweet Home and Emerson excessively. The signal that is there, what we can justify on there and see through the data is that signal is not warranted. We actually reviewed it last month, and we're recommending to the county the removal of the signal and potential installation of a roundabout at that area. But it is a county intersection, county road, so it's not within our jurisdiction. But we have sent referrals to the county regarding that particular intersection based on issues, accident history. There's two sides to everything. So with that, we will close item number 5. And we will move to the next item that we have someone signed in for this item this evening, which is item D under old business, which is Lamarck Drive speeding concerns.
You're not going to speak? You're not going to speak?
So this is an older item, and that this board has already made its recommendation specific to Lamarck in this section. Do my best to try to explain where we've been and why the resident is bringing this up again. But essentially, he came to us and said, hey, people are speeding on this section of Lamarck. It was confirmed that the 85th percentile is 37 miles per hour in both directions, at about 1,500 vehicles per day. Member Dan Ryder came up with a concept to potentially stripe it in a different manner to try to slow down the vehicles. That striping plan was ultimately sent to the Highway Department, and there was no desire by the Highway Department to deploy that striping plan. Specific to other information, there was one crash at the intersection of Stanwick, and this is the data that was collected for the resident. There is a no parking already between Kensington and Stanwick. And again, the section we're talking about is between Kensington and Worley. And I'll turn it over to the board.
With that, we'll open it up to the resident for public comment.
Okay. My name is Edward Casalis, 276 Lamarck. Before I begin, though, I wish to thank the board for allowing me to come back to talk about old business, and especially Chris for answering my emails and talking to the chairman about this. So I really appreciate it. I did talk to Superintendent Floss, and the reason for they rejected the striping because he said the street is too narrow. Also spoke to him about speed bumps and speed humps, and he said that as the discussion was this evening, as the discussion was this evening is what he also reiterated. There was a speed trailer put onto the street just outside my window, actually. And you can see, well, this is my car, and where the tree was, this is another picture for something else. But the speed trailer was right there by that tree. And I could see where the cars coming off of Worley, 38, 40 miles an hour, but by the time they got down to where the speed trailer was, the speed dropped precipitously 28, 30 miles an hour. My window was right there, so I'm retired, so I can watch things. But I did text Captain Parsons, and he said that there was no data accumulated. It was just a speed trailer on there. The situation now is that the speeding continues, but now it's summertime. So we get a lot of turbos coming up and down the street. There's one of them. Our street floods because it's the only drain on the street, and it accumulates all the leaves and stuff, and so the street floods. Then we go out there and undo it, and it drains. And I heard this guy coming down the street. I got out my camera, and if you want to see speeding, they're speeding. There's a car in there, okay? And this has been happening. Now is construction season, so construction trucks are going up and down the street at a fairly good clip. And the other thing about our intersection at Kensington and Lamarck, you put in the cutout was put in, and that saved a lot of accidents and near accidents on that intersection. The problem is that they're now using the cutout to cut straight across the intersection when no one is coming, and it's pedal to the metal straight down Lamarck to Worley. I just have a few quick suggestions. Yes, the gentleman mentioned that it's enforcement, and I know that the towns are strapped for police to do the enforcement, but enforcement would help. These speed indicator lights, and now I've seen a number of them. The latest one I saw today, I was actually coming here from Worley on Cayuga, and there's actually 2 on Cayuga. And the last thing I wanted to mention was, they're called speed cushions, where you have a hump, a space, a hump, and a space, and a hump. And the space is wide enough for the emergency vehicles to go right through, but not wide enough to get a car through. So a car would have to use part of the hump and then the flat area. But the car does not have the wheelbase to make it straight through there. So that's my question that I have for the board is, because I know you made your recommendation and it was, you made your recommendation, and if you have a recommendation, a second recommendation, that'd be great. But kind of my question is, and I've heard about going to the town board, would that be a suggestion to do that? Or where do I go from here regarding the speed on that street? But thank you for listening to me again. I hope to not see you again, but thanks for listening to me.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? None being heard or seen, we'll close the public comment period on old business item D and open it up to the board for discussion.
The only thing I will say is that last time I had said that I was in favor of installing a radar speed sign on this street, just based on the volume of the traffic and the speed of the traffic with 37 miles per hour in both directions. Additionally, looking at the speeds over 40 miles per hour, 8 or 9 a.m., there's 12 cars going over 40 miles per hour at that time. So I know there wasn't any appetite for a speed radar sign on this street from other members of the board, but I still am in favor of that. So I just wanted to point that out.
I'd be curious what Cheektowaga does on their half between Worley and Cleveland. Have they had the same complaints, and what have they done? I think they've got no parking on the east side. I think there's parking only on the west side. So they've made it so you can park on only one side of Lamarck. And I just wonder, have they had the same problem? I can't imagine the problem stops at a signal and isn't there between the other block and the other. Is it worth having a conversation with their traffic board?
I have not engaged with Town of Cheektowaga.
What's that?
I haven't had conversations with them.
So what?
I think the traffic board is the supervisor.
Is it?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
So do we have parking restrictions currently on Lamarck? Yes, correct?
No, there aren't.
No, just on that north end.
Just on the north end, right?
I drove it. I live on Lamarck, okay? I live on that very street. And I drove it like 2 or 3 times just to make sure. And I think it's only restricted between Kensington and Stanwix, and it's open until like 40 or 50 feet from Worley.
Right, so I guess what my question is here is, if speed is the concern, restricting parking on one side of the street would open the street up more. We would want to choke the street down. So we want the parking on the street to help choke it down. Right.
Well, I'd wonder what Cheektowaga's input would be, whether they've had any success with that or not, because that's what they did. Maybe they have a problem now that they've restricted the parking.
Okay, so Chris.
Maybe that problem actually bubbles down onto the block between Worley and Kensington. Maybe a problem that Cheektowaga created by limiting the parking is now bubbling down onto Worley, between Worley and Kensington.
is the speeding during the week? Is the speeding during the week rather than the weekend? Even the weekend when they're parked on both sides of the street? It should. Well, it's not perfect, I mean.
So,
Traffic studies do show that parking cars will slow traffic down.
Okay,
No,
so-
is that the ultimate solution? Probably not.
okay. So Chris, when it comes to highway, we've talked to everybody about the speed tables and the speed humps. Have we had any conversation about the speed cushions? I know we've looked at them before.
No.
Is anyone here in favor of having that conversation or referring that over to Superintendent Floss to see if he has any
Always looking for new
thoughts on
tools.
it?
If I may, if I'm just casually address the chair, I've had a number of discussions with Mr. Floss on the issues of speed bumps, speed tables, and so on. And I don't believe that his objections to those items would be addressed by this. You're welcome to have a conversation with him. As a matter of fact, because I've never heard of this, I am going to ask him about it. But his objections to speed bumps, speed tables, and so on, I don't think that they would be addressed by the speed pillow. I believe that's what it's called, right? That was
Speed cushion, yep.
speed cushion.
Actually,
yeah. Okay.
it would probably be harder for the plows to have that than it would be for a full speed hump or bump, which is what the highway department is concerned about. Unfortunately, at this point, this traffic safety board's hands are tied as to what we can do for your concerns. We would be in favor of a radar feedback sign to be installed on the street if the town had money for that to be done, and there was residents that were looking to have that in front of their house. If you would be, that resident would be okay with that. But again, there's financial things that need to be done that would need to be met for the town to be able to install that on your street. So that is something that we already have stated that we're in favor of. We have the idea to do the offset striping on the street to narrow the lanes of traffic down and have the parking on the one side of the street. That was rejected by the highway department. And we already have our challenges regarding the speed humps, speed tables that the highway department and the town board is not, well, I don't know if the town board is in favor of, but the town board I don't think has the jurisdiction to tell the highway department to do it. So this board has stated numerous times we would be in favor of speed humps on streets where it is justified. Looking at your speed on your street at the 37 miles per hour, it's on the higher end. So it would probably be one that would be considered. But at this point, there is not support from the town to do that. So. Mm-hmm. So it's one way, correct? Did you have something else?
Yeah, I did, excuse me, I did just confirm with Chris that in our last time we discussed this, we didn't formally recommend a radar speed sign as part of our recommendation. So I am going to take a shot in the dark and make a motion for the installation of that.
I'll second it. Any further conversation on that?
What's the motion?
The motion is to refer to town board for funding for the installation of a radar feedback sign on Lamarck.
I agree.
Motion by Greg, second by me. Any further discussion? None being heard, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 8-0. So we have a motion. So this board has just made a recommendation, or passed a motion that'll go to Councilmember Zucala, asking the town board to identify funding for the possibility of the installation of a radar feedback sign. It's one of these signs. It's like the one that you would see on Evans, on Mill. There was one installed on Park Club Lane. I think there were 2 that were installed.
Yeah,
There was one installed on Brompton recently. There's a significant cost in installing those, so there needs to be budgetary. It needs to be budgeted for within the highway department's budget for the installation, or the town's budget for those to be installed. But we're recommending that that be installed on the street. But it would be up to the town board to take that action, find the funding source, and review it to the departments to see if it's feasible.
But I'm sure I know what he's going to say about that.
Normally, they're placed on both ends, one in each direction. That would be, so that would not, we have no control over that.
I can tell you, we only do hardwired now. We don't do solar anymore.
Right.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, that's a potential. I did speak to National Grid, and we do have the ability to electrify these radar feedback signs utilizing our street light wiring.
Okay, so that, we're recommending that. It now goes to Councilmember Zucala, the town board, funding sources within the different departmental budgets. But we're seeing positive results in them in the town where they have been placed. So hopefully, as we move forward, the town will allot more funding for those in the future. Okay. It would be up to Councilmember Zucala if he puts a resolution before the board or what action he takes. So I'd recommend.
You're always welcome to make your case.
Yep.
You're always welcome.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. So with that, we'll close item number. That was
D.
That was old business D on the agenda. We'll move to the next item that we have someone signed in for this evening, which is item number 7, which is Hopkins and Klein Road intersection pedestrian safety concerns. Don't even get anything here.
All right, so Hopkins and Klein is a town-owned intersection. Wow, let me back up. It intersects with the county roadway. Klein is a town road. Hopkins is a county road, but the signalized intersection itself, we own the signal. We operate and maintain that signal. What item are we? 7. So a request came to us specific to pedestrian safety. There's a nearby camp with an apparent near miss related to a turning vehicle when campgoers were crossing the street. Particularly for the new member, we have smart signals throughout our signal system, and that allows us to grab video. And so we were able to capture this information, and I'm going to show that to the board. Okay, so this is a 360-degree camera up on the signal pole. Obviously looking down. North is to your, kind of in this direction. This is, what's that?
Keybank.
Keybank, thank you. East is to the left of the screen. So here are all the pedestrians walking along the sidewalk. These are campgoers, as far as I know. Right now, Klein is given the green. And they are most likely, you can't see it here, but are given the walk, don't walk symbol. One of the, I don't know what you want to call them, the camp counselors or camp person is going to walk out in the intersection first to kind of control the crossing scenario and then wave on the other people. And this car is deciding to go. So this is a permissive left turn. They do have the ability to turn left. Maybe perhaps they just didn't have the patience, or they didn't want to wait for all these onslaught of pedestrians to cross, so they just kind of cut the corner, and that is what the person is bringing to our attention. So they're asking, is there any other potential way to make this safer? I will tell you that this signal has ped heads, it has crosswalks, it kind of has everything you really want for pedestrian safety. She also did mention the potential for a crossing guard.
It's very high traffic there.
Yes, it is.
Okay, so with that, we will open up the public comment period, and we have Veronica.
Yes, my name is Veronica, and so I'm here.
Pull that mic down a little bit for yourself.
On
There
behalf
you
of
go.
Child Time on Hopkins at 855 Hopkins Road. I was that person that walked into the road, and seeing on video, it looked less close than it felt in the moment. But even behind us, you could see another camp group coming through. There's lots of camp groups, lots of just families walking through that intersection, because we were actually on our way back from the Clearfield Community Center. We use that intersection 2 to 3 times a week to go to the community center or the library there. And so I mentioned in my initial message about this about a crossing guard potentially, but even just like additional signage to warn that pedestrians are there, because even though it is a busy intersection and people should be aware, there's lots of reckless drivers as just like an additional instance of that through our own parking lot at Child Time. We have people cutting through there daily, even just yesterday, to avoid that light. They cut right diagonal through our parking lot. And we also have school buses that drop off, people not stopping for school buses. So just in general, the people driving through the intersection don't seem totally aware of the presence of children, families, pedestrians in general. Is that?
Yep. Thank you. Anyone else here to speak on this item this evening? None being heard or seen. We'll close the public comment period on item number 7. And open it up here to the board.
Atomic land torpedoes.
So I have a couple suggestions. Upgrading the crosswalk to an LS style crosswalk, I think would be beneficial, or something that should be considered. And also, this intersection doesn't have turning vehicles yield to pedestrian signs on the 4 approaches, or at least the approaches I looked at. And I think adding those would be beneficial as well.
So,
Chris, does this have ped heads?
Yes.
It does.
All corners. So going back to Greg's motion, or not motion, but suggestion for vehicles must yield to pedestrian signage. I know the highway department has difficulty placing those on span wires. Would you want those to be ground-mounted signs?
I mean, I think they could be, like this one, for example, could be placed essentially near that library sign, or yeah, ground mounted would be fine if hanging it on the span wires isn't possible. But I do think it would be beneficial, and similar intersections with similar traffic volumes in the town do have them. So I do think they'd be helpful.
So I personally drive through this intersection at least probably 2 times a day. I live over in that area. I would be in favor of the high visibility crosswalks in that area, but I also know that this intersection has come before this board. I often ask Chris what the status of it is because we had a meeting and agenda item prior to COVID where we were asked to put together a wish list in that area of improvements to be made through that whole corridor with the county regarding Clearfield, regarding the Dashes Market, regarding the configuration of that intersection itself. If you pay attention to what the county has done to Hopkins Road, they have milled and repaved Hopkins Road to Sheridan Drive. They have milled and repaved Hopkins Road on the other side of this intersection, but the stretch through this intersection up to Sheridan is currently a patch zone where they continue to patch it. There's deteriorating, this doesn't show it, there's this deteriorating. The curb and the curb gutter, if you go through those crosswalks, there's chunks of them that are missing. So I know my kids themselves ride their bike to Dashes through that intersection. It drives me crazy. But there's actually giant holes, or there were. I actually said something to Chris about them at one point because in those intersections, I don't know if they've been filled or anything, but that's all crumbled concrete through there. So it's an ADA issue, it's a bike issue, it's a walking issue. The entire intersection needs improvements done by the county. Part of the reason why the people are making those turns that they're making is because most likely they're backlogged at that intersection trying to make the left-hand turn. The traffic coming in the other direction is often backed up past the entrance to the Dashes parking lot. So people are just at a point of frustration waiting through 2 or 3 cycles of that intersection at a time to get through it, and they don't want to wait for a pedestrian coming across the street because they see you coming and they're saying to themselves, if I let the pedestrians go, I'm going to be waiting through this intersection, this signal again before I'm able to go. So that's exactly what they're doing at that intersection. The intersection itself needs improvements. We can put the high visibility crosswalks in there to help with the situation, but the road condition at this point probably is deteriorated anyway, that the intersection itself needs to be milled, resurfaced, and that's on the county.
Chris, did that offending car have the arrow to turn?
No, if you watch it, he comes to the intersection late. Okay, so this westbound is given the through. If he were there, if he was in the detection zone earlier, it would have given him a dedicated left, in which case it would have held the pedestrians. Okay. Because he arrived late, it's giving the through and the permissive left, meaning it's essentially dark and you're allowed to turn left when it's clear. So
and if he had gotten the green arrow, then there would not have been a walk indication on the crosswalk.
So also notice the cars stacked there and coming through of what he did. So Chris, if you can go to the Google Maps.
I don't understand where you're saying they're stacked.
So the cars coming straight are stacked. The white car that made the right-hand turn, the 1, 2, 3, 4, okay. You can see the cars coming. So if you go to Google Maps and go to the satellite view or Google Earth, see the cars are stacked there? See how the cars are stacked along that stretch, going through, go back towards Bassett Park.
Oh, Bassett Park?
Right? So your turning lane.
Sorry. I don't know where Bassett Park is.
You're right there. You're there. You're good. Zoom down a little. Stop. Notice the cars here. Notice the cars back here. This is the left hand. That's the left hand stacking lane. What that car was most likely doing is those cars are backed up normally into this stretch right here. You can see the signal up in that area. You can see the signal up here. You're backed up. You see the left hand turning lane is clear. You have a window where there's no cars coming on this stretch of the road. Cars are constantly coming from this area back here, coming on the wrong side of the road to zoom up and catch into that left hand turning lane to pass all of those cars. So when you look at that overhead view with the car coming through, you can see the cars that are stacked there. He's coming down through that area in the middle turning lane, and you see the stacked cars. That's a common movement. You can see just by the speed that he's coming that none of those cars are moving, and you can see the car, the white car, gray car, white car, next car coming up. He was behind that one, came up the road, saw the clearance, and zoomed right through there. That happens every day. He wasn't even paying attention, never even saw the people coming through there. He just saw the clear lane to make the left-hand turn and went.
Chris, let it run, because that white car that's on the,
Yeah, I was going to point that out,
it waits
Jennifer.
for the gap in the pedestrians, and then it makes a right turn.
Well, yeah, so,
I mean,
but what's interesting is the vehicle behind it. It didn't want to wait, so it goes around, using the left turn to go around the car that's yielded to pedestrians.
Bunch of savages. Oh, man, did I say that? I'm sorry.
Make a request to change the traffic lighting so that it's not a permissive left.
Yeah, I mean, that,
Yeah,
that,
You don't have enough stacking.
yeah, the traffic flow there is rough anyway. I mean, if you did that, that would be rough, like for logistical reasons.
What you need at that intersection is you need right-hand turning lanes on Klein Road. You need a right-hand turning lane where that white car is to make the right onto Hopkins, and you need a right-hand turning lane at the daycare center on the other side. You're missing a lane of traffic, and that's why everything's stacking there. And that was part of the recommendation, is the wish list that we sent to the county as part of them to study. Prior to COVID, COVID came, and I believe that entire project has gone no place.
and also, she mentioned people are cutting through her parking lot to short circuit. It's all about the traffic operations and not being able to get to the lane that you want to get into.
Yes.
The queue length that you pointed out.
Yep. That intersection has one right-hand turning lane, which is the Hopkins to Klein turning lane, which is across the street from the bank, is the only one that's there. It needs the other three.
So then would our recommendation be to reach back out to the county and say what's going on?
Yes, I would like to make the ask refer, I mean, if we could send the video to the county, if we could send the information to the county, the condition of the intersection, the road condition at the intersection with the broken curb tiles, the ADA issues that are at that intersection, being next to a library, next to a community center, numerous daycare centers using those intersections, the county needs to review that intersection and take action.
That intersection is 25 years old.
And if they do make those changes by adding right turn lanes, there's a potential that they would need to modify the signal. If they get that part of the project, then they pay for it, even though we take responsibility for the signal after the fact. They could also add overhead signage about the pedestrians. They could also add high visibility back plates to the signal. So there
Yes,
are
and one of the
more
things-
improvements that they
Correct.
could make.
One of the things that I believe was considered by this board as part of those recommendations was the installation potentially of a roundabout in that intersection. I know we all love them, but that was something that was, I remember that being discussed as that intersection, that I believe, something that we looked at in there, that there was right-of-way space. Not saying that that's where we would go, it was just one of the things to be considered or reviewed. Because there may be enough room for that, but not enough room for all the right-hand turning lanes. It's tight.
I don't like roundabouts for pedestrians.
Correct.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's tough too. That was, I just remember the roundabout as a solution because there wasn't potential, or a roundabout could potentially fit, but the right-hand turning lanes could not. So, Chris, could we just refer that back to county to see status of any maintenance work or things to be done at that intersection?
Sure.
And then, I think before we'd want to put high visibility crosswalks or any painting or anything into that intersection, that would be to the county anyway, correct?
Say the question again?
The painting of the intersection for high visibility crosswalks, is that on the town or is that on the county?
That would be the town's responsibility, along with the signage that Greg brought up.
If you want to,
Make those high visibility crosswalks if there's not going to be any sort of action done
Was that your motion? Yes. Okay, so there's a motion from Nick to refer to highway for the installation of high visibility crosswalks and turning yield to pedestrians, signage ground mounted.
Second.
So motion by Nick, second by Greg. Any further conversation? None being heard, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 8-0. Okay, so that's where we stand now. We'll refer that to highway to see about high visibility and yield to pedestrians, and also to county for an update as to any improvements to be made at that intersection. Okay, yep, thank you.
This is the most dangerous thing I've seen since I've been on this board, 10 years.
All right, next item that we have someone signed in for is item number 3, Homecrest and Hillcrest Drive intersection.
Leaving us, huh? Oh, yes. Nobody here?
Okay. A request came to us saying, how do we go about requesting additional signage at the intersection of Homecrest and Hillcrest? It's a two-way stop, but there's no signage indicating that cross traffic does not stop. So we're considering this a cross traffic does not stop request. Let me get to the right intersection here. Hillcrest and Homecrest. Item 3. This is a map of the current stop sign locations. It is stopping Hillcrest, and Homecrest is identified as the major, so they get to go through freely. In terms of crash reporting, we took a look at the last 5 years. There were 0 crashes within that intersection. The one being shown just east of the intersection is driveway related. This is what a cross traffic does not stop subplaque. That's what it looks like. And there's guidance within your package on when to consider that.
Okay, thank you, Chris. With that, open up the public comment period to item number 3 and K.
Good evening. My name's Kate Prinzy. I live at 301 Homecrest Drive, which is technically off Woodcrest there where the sharp angle corner is. So interestingly enough, the stop sign coming, south on Hillcrest, is really far back from that intersection. If you pull up the Google map image, the no parking on this side is actually closer to the intersection than that stop sign. So obviously we come through there a lot. The road, Homecrest is actually pretty busy just because it's a cut through off Sweet Home. So there's a lot of traffic there. So essentially what happens is that people stopped at that intersection think that it's a 4-way stop. So as you're even very slowly, carefully approaching that intersection, people assume that you're going to stop because you're of course driving slowly, and so they just pull out into the intersection. I've almost been T-boned numerous times, even though I am very cautious going through there. And then, like I said, the stop sign is so far back, people tend to just California roll through it and just blast right through the intersection, which of course we can't control the speed, we can't control people, blowing through intersections, but I feel like maybe ideally the stop sign closer to the intersection, but realize that's not always possible. So even if it's a 2-way stop or just something to indicate that that traffic doesn't stop, because if you don't live in the neighborhood, you just assume, because almost many other intersections in that area are 4-way stops. So Obviously, making it a four-way stop isn't reasonable, but if there's just additional signage to let people know who aren't familiar with the neighborhood, like, hey, these people are not going to stop coming by you, so they stop pulling into the intersection, would be very helpful, because I feel like it would be better to be proactive than reactive, as opposed to waiting for there to be numerous accidents. Myself, I have a 2.5-year-old who rides in my backseat, of course, so anytime that I'm going to get T-boned, it's going to be where he is at. So I would prefer to try to take action against that. Thank you for giving me the time, I guess.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak on this item? None being heard, we'll close the public comment period and open it up to the board. So my first comment on this is, my gut tells me that if we counted this intersection, it's stop controlled the wrong direction. I would find it hard to believe that there's more traffic on Homecrest than there is on Hillcrest, since there's a signal at Maple and Hillcrest.
The resident's shaking her head, yes.
Correct.
I think you're probably right. The only thing I would say is that the other intersection, or the other, like Hillcrest seems to be slightly offset on that southern leg. Like if you look at the aerial overhead satellite view, Chris, it is slightly offset. So I wonder if that's why the stop sign was originally placed there, just so that people, you get what I'm saying? Like it kind of, they have to move over.
So that they don't just through into a sidewalk?
Yeah, essentially. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just speculating.
Valid point.
So Eric, you're suggesting maybe a count and then reversing the signs, the stop signs?
I think, well, first of all, if we go back to the street view that Chris was, I think the no parking sign and the stop sign should be reversed.
Yep, seems like an easy one. While stop signs may be is up to 50 feet from an intersection to be properly signed, I don't see why you wouldn't put that closer to the intersection and put the no parking sign back. I mean, you can't park within 30 feet of a stop sign, I believe VNT says. So you wouldn't want to start this sign until, it's 30 feet from the stop sign.
What's it like on the other side, where that oncoming car is? What's over there?
You want to go over here?
Yeah. Is there what's the sign over there? Anything?
Right at the corner.
Normal. Better. It's more appropriately placed, and there's nothing about parking.
So I think before we do, can we just refer that to highway, Chris? To correct the stop sign placement with the no parking sign?
I'm sorry, is this?
That's a Crab Shack.
Yeah,
Crab.
it used to be, what was that restaurant before it was Crab Shack? Shake Shack? No, Joe's Crab Shack. So I remember when this came in, Joe's Crab Shack was really popular, and there was overflow parking occurring on this segment. That's why you have the no parking. It was specific to overflow parking. I don't know if this generates the same amount of interest. And
So you're saying you could potentially even remove the no parking restriction?
could.
But we know that that's hard. I don't want to take up that battle right now. So if we can just correct the stop sign and no parking sign, refer that to highway to take that action.
Yep.
And can we, do we need traffic counts?
If we're gonna determine major, minor leg, we'd have to, wouldn't we?
Right. So can we ask for traffic counts there as well to determine the major and minor leg?
But
we don't have an accident history.
Yeah, there's no accident history, and like to your point, it's an offset
Yeah.
intersection. If we switch the signs and this becomes the through movement, I'm I'm a little bit concerned about
Yeah,
that.
Well, I guess my question is why I was saying, do we need traffic counts? We have a misaligned intersection. We don't have an accident history that would kind of warrant placing the cross traffic does not stop. But does the misaligned intersection, the way that it is, warrant, even without a traffic count, to just make it an all-way stop sign?
Well, I was originally going to ask my favorite question, why wouldn't we do this? We had a similar problem on that one street, a few blocks up from here.
So Chairman, your suggestion about the traffic counts is not necessarily to switch the signs on the major minor, but to see if there's enough to warrant an all-way stop.
So where I'm going with it is that if we were to do a traffic count on there and we would prove that the minor and major it's stop controlled the wrong way, we could make a motion to install the correct stop signs where they should be, but then we would also need another resolution to remove the other stop signs. The other stop signs are going to get rejected because nobody ever removes a stop sign. It always gets turned down anyway. So instead of having those two resolutions go before the board, doing all of the counting, we have a misaligned intersection. The traffic counts based on going to the school are going to show that the major leg is actually the one that is currently stop controlled. Do we just make the motion to make it a four-way stop sign?
I would not be opposed to that.
I just want another piece of data. Is this heavily traveled by pedestrians to get to the school?
Do we have crossing guards across Maple Road going into the school? Yes.
Do we? Okay.
So
I mean, there's just further justification for pedestrian activity around schools to do an all-way stop when the volume is not warranted. My point is you guys have done that in the past, further bolstering your potential action of an all-way stop.
I'm just going to make a motion for the installation of an all-way stop sign.
Second.
Second by Greg. Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 8-0. Yep, thank you.
So just so the board knows.
Like before that, right?
Oh, yeah. So, ma'am, we're going to try to fix that sign first, get it to the right spot, the location, and it's closer to the intersection, because this takes time. And I will want to do a traffic count anyways. This board didn't ask for one, but the town board always asks me if a traffic count's been conducted, and I don't want to stand before them and say no. I want to have the data present.
Yeah, Chris, you want to hold that till when school's in session?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And, well, a pedestrian count too?
No, just
Traffic is enough?
traffic is fine. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that we have nobody else signed in this evening, so now we will go to the agenda order, which takes us to item number 2, which is Landings Drive, speeding concerns, request for radar feedback sign.
Sorry, what are we on?
We are on Landings Drive, item number 2.
So another radar feedback sign.
So I got one question on this, Chris. The study that's in here, in our packet, well, I'll let you do your background.
Yeah.
The Landings Drive traffic study. Just curious who did that.
Let me catch up here. So we're on landings,
Landings.
and we're talking about the cut-through traffic study?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm with you now. What's your question?
Who did that?
Engineering department.
Oh, okay. Normally there's something on the cover page saying who completed it. There was like no Amherst letterhead or anything on there.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good note. That's why it's stamped draft. It should say who it's conducted by. I can tell you, I was out there, and an intern was out there, and a part-timer was out there to do the cut-through. And then we also asked for updated counts. And then we did a comparison of those counts to the previous study done in 2014.
Do you have more information you want to give us on this?
Yeah. So just looking at the count comparison. We did one count a little bit different than the other one, so it wasn't apples to apples. So I'm only going to show you the one that was put generally in the same spot. So back in 2014, the volume has actually decreased. The speed has actually decreased in both directions, but the cut through has increased. So we are getting cut through per that study. That's occurring only in the northbound direction. 2014 study actually showed it going the southbound direction as well. So where is that? This is the newest one. Nobody is going the opposite direction, again, going southbound. Only coming from North French to Clearwater or from North French to Landings. We did not study it on South Parish. There could be some cut through going in there. We just didn't have the staff to put a person there. 11% might seem like a lot, but it's 12 in 2 hours, 23 in 2 hours. I caveat that by saying that there's going to be some improvements by the DOT at that intersection, which has been long requested for a right turn lane. That is in motion. I gave you that information in the package, as well as the recommendation from this board to the county to make North French a 3-lane highway. That is also moving forward. When DOT was doing their crash analysis, they really identified that North French needs to be changed to a 3-lane highway. So that's what's pushing that. And that is currently under design.
When are they gonna start?
I think it's 25.
Saw something about it being completed in 2025.
Yeah, they've already had their public comment period. If you look at the resident's request, he was asking for radar feedback signs. Residents are asking for speed humps. One's got to look at the data and say, are the speeds really that high to warrant those types of devices? As I previously mentioned, we are around the 33 mile per hour, 85th percentile, so not terrible. I'm sure there's some high speeders throughout there.
So I'm going to move to receive and file this item.
Good.
We've discussed with the residents in this area. We've had the engineering department complete the study that was shown that shows cut-through traffic under 20%, which shows that it's the residents of the neighborhood that are the speeding problem. It's not the cut-through traffic. There's also a major construction project to be conducted by DOT in the summer of 2025 that should hopefully further reduce the cut-through traffic. And the speed analysis as part of the study that was done is not in the area of excessive speeds. They're aligned with what we see through the rest of the town. So we wouldn't even probably have the street under consideration for speed bumps or speed humps or tables if they were permitted just based on where the speeds are. So I would move to receive and file.
Second.
Second by Greg. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried 8-0.
Next item is number 4, if I'm correct.
Correct.
Marine Drive, 31. A resident is requesting additional curve warning signs, as indicated on the screen. There are already signs warning of the curve with advisory speed limit signs. We then took a look at crash data, and we don't have any crashes within the past 5 years for the entirety of Marine Drive. If you did find it's necessary to add additional signage, there are these 2 figures within the book that allows you to place chevrons and all sorts of little indications. Again, right now, we only have these advanced signs.
Did you say you did a ball bank on this one, or no?
I didn't because it was already signed.
Oh, it's already
If you think
signed.
it's signed inappropriately, then we could do it.
If it's signed appropriately.
When I looked at it, I thought the geometry matched what the advisory signs. Whoa, where are we going?
Going to Canal side.
Sorry, I looked at this one wrong.
Well, I can't remember what they are. Are they 15s? Yeah, 15s. It looks like a 15 type curve.
And based on the fact that this is not a street that would be used for any cut-through traffic, it would really only be local traffic, I could be convinced to not put any additional signage, but if the board did want to have a conversation about additional signage, the only thing I think I would entertain is the, just those simple arrow, like literally if you go to Street View right there, Chris, on that little corner.
Like this direction?
Yeah, like pretty much right in the corner.
Oh.
Yep. There's a post, there's like a light post right there. And if you just put a, just one arrow in each direction on each of those approaches, I don't know what the exact like MUTCD sign number is, but just right on that post in each direction, I'd be okay with that, but only if the rest of the board thinks that it's even necessary.
I don't think we have an accident.
Gotcha.
Well, we have 4, right?
And I do want to point out the odd geometry kind of bulbs out.
Yeah.
I'm not in favor of adding any signage.
I'm not in favor of adding any signage.
No crashes? Maybe trim the trees a little bit.
What's that? All in favor of receive and file?
Aye.
Aye. 8-0, Chris, receive and file. Sign is adequate. 5 is done, 6 is done, 7's done. 8 is done. 9 on new business, Collins Lane.
Yeah, on your screen is the existing traffic control for the intersection of Collins Court and Russert/Collins Lane. I believe at the time of the package delivery, I was unable to provide you with an all-waste warrant analysis, but the Highway Department did do that last week. We did take receipt of the data, and I'm willing to share that with you tonight. By the way, crashes, there aren't any. Warrant analysis for an all-way stop. As you could probably guess, we are very far from meeting it. Just for the sake of the new member, when we talk about warrant analysis for an all-way stop, the book tells you you need 300 vehicles per hour in the largest 8-hour period in a day. So we look at the major and we pick out the highest volumes, and none of them are even close to hitting that 300 mark. Similarly, the minor road needs 200 vehicles per hour. We top out at 12. So yeah, we're not there. There are ways to lower those criteria, and that's what all these other columns are. If the 85th percentile is exceeding 40 miles per hour, we can reduce it down to a 70% level. Likewise, if there's an accident history, we can also do 70%. But even with the 70%, no, it's not being met. So, whoops. By the book, it is signed correctly. Stopping the minor approaches.
Any further conversations? Anyone want to make a motion here? Motion from Dan to receive and file. Is there a second? Second from Nick. Any further conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 8-0. That concludes our new business section on the agenda. Are there any matters that anyone on this board wishes to bring before the board? None being heard, we will close the new business section of the agenda. We will move to old business, and we have item A, Sundridge and Cascade, which is being held for counts during school, so that'll continue to be held most likely until October. And then we have Windermere Boulevard, item B.
So Windermere, we really were not satisfied with that count that was done and presented last meeting, so you had me do it again. Jennifer wanted it down the road a little bit, so we did do that. Also, you asked to investigate potentially installation of speed bumps. I informed you that I would be first reaching out to the highway superintendent before doing any survey, and the highway superintendent will not do any speed humps on Windermere, so we're not going to go through that exercise. Specific to the counts, we do have those to share. I think it was in your package, but it really didn't change. The volume was off on the last one. If you recall, there was a northbound and southbound discrepancy by quite a bit. In this one, that evened out to pretty close to 500 and 670. So maybe there was a car parked there or something in the way of the counter on the last one. But we're still only hitting 32 and 29. So while it may be being used to avoid the Jersey left, as indicated at the last meeting, those that are using it as a cut-through are not traveling at any high rate of speed per the data.
Jennifer, any comments?
No, I mean, the speed studies, 32 and 29, I mean, I don't think there's an issue. And
Okay.
if we can't put speed humps in, then.
If we can't put speed humps, the speed really is not out of line with anything else in the town, so receive and file.
Receive and file.
All in favor?
Aye.
8-0 on that. Chateau Terrace and Lamarck have been covered, and E. Gettsville Road stop signs, that's just still being held, Chris?
Yeah, I forget why we kept this on the agenda. I don't recall. I don't have any information to share.
Okay. That went, our stuff already went to the
I
town
think it
board
was
on
more
that,
for the
so.
public if they wanted to come and speak on it.
Okay. Any other old business that anyone wishes to bring before the board?
I have one item, Chairman.
Go ahead.
I've noticed that the installation of the island at Maynard and Crosby is going in, and it's looking really good, so thank you to the highway department or whoever was involved with that, and I believe that was Greg's idea, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just to echo that, I agree. And I also wanted to, I know Highway's not represented here tonight, but I do want to publicly say thank you to them and to Al and Superintendent Floss and the rest of the Highway Department for installing the crosswalks and stop bars at Eggert, Sweet Home, and Rosedale. I do very much appreciate it, and I believe the neighborhood appreciates it as well.
Cindy, do you want to just work up a memo of thanks to the highway superintendent on those two items? Thanks.
Any other old business? None being heard, we will close the old business. We will thank our liaisons for attending with us this evening, and we will move on to site plans. And Scott's box.
Bill's still here.